All right, so welcome to another Camaro restoration episode, and in this video, this is going to be really fun for me because I get to take all the new parts that I bought, the new brakes, the new suspension, the new steering, and I get to install it on the car and kind of put that front end of that car back together to the point where I can put the wheels and tires on it, and that is a really big step for me. Lots of big steps in these last couple of videos. Getting the subframe back in was, to me, a big step, and then this is going to be kind of the finishing touches to that. So really excited about that. All of the parts that I'm using today, I showed you guys in the last video. If you happen to miss that one, check it out, because I walk through each one of the parts that I bought and also give you the part number to everything that I'm going to put on the car today. Now, I say today, that's a little bit optimistic. I don't know if I'll get to everything in this video, but I'm certainly going to try to. And I'm going to start with the upper and lower control arms on both sides of that subframe, because everything kind of just feeds off and builds off those control arms. And so I had already pressed out the old control arm bushings before I painted my control arms. And there's the kit right here for the new control arms. It's an energy suspension kit. And it kind of left me kind of scratching my head, to be honest with you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So there's some parts of this, I guess, that I'll go into more detail than other parts. Some things are just simply bolting and unbolting, and I won't cover that in as much detail. But there's other things like this kit that, at least, like I said, had me questioning things and how to do it, because the instructions aren't that great, that I'll spend a little bit more time with, and then skip through some of the stuff that's a little bit more routine, like I said, bolting and unbolting stuff. So that's the game plan. I'm super excited to get started on this. Let's get into it. All right, so like I said, I'm going to start off with the control arms. This is an energy suspension kit, these bushings, 3.3105, and the R is for the red, as I've said in my previous video. These also come in black, and yes, I got red. One, because I like red, but two, I just think it's going to make a nice contrast in the car against that jet black of the subframe, firewall, suspension parts. Just going to look really cool. So before I show you the instructions here, I can tell you that there's, I'm not crazy about the gold or the zinc plated. Not crazy about that color. I'm going to leave them for the installation, because if I paint them now, I'm just going to get them all scratched up, and I may go back and paint them black later, because particularly on the upper control arms, those will show quite a bit. But I know you're probably not going to be able to read these instructions, but that's it. And it tells you a couple of tips about bracing the control arms when you press the bushings in and out. Good stuff there. I really didn't think that you had to do that, but it makes sense. So I'll show you the pieces of metal that I cut to get that done. But it doesn't really tell you where all these things go, what position they go in, upper, lower, right, left, nothing like that. It just kind of gives you some general pointers. And then all this basically says to lubricate with the lubrication that they give you for these bushings, every piece of the polyurethane that touches metal, inside and outside diameter, if it's going to touch the metal. So that's it. I've written some torque specs down that I got online, but that's really all it gives you. And I was kind of looking for a page 2 to say, okay, how do I know which one goes where? And then once I got my control arms, it becomes pretty self-explanatory, because all of those sleeves are different sizes, and they really only will fit into one hole on your control arms. And then all of the inner sleeves, these guys right here, match the height of each of the bushings. So that kind of came together, but initially, like I said, I was looking for page 2 of the instructions, because that just wasn't making much sense to me. And in that this little black container right here is the energy suspension polyurethane lubrication that they give you. Again, grease up everything every part of this that's gonna touch metal, whether it's inside or on the outside. And that's in the directions, and they really, really stress that, particularly for these control arms. All right, so I've got 2 pieces of metal here, and I'll show you this one when I do the lower control arms, but essentially this will go in between the two pieces of the lower control arm. It's got 2 of these on one side, and it kind of fits in between there to prevent it from collapsing on itself. And then on the upper control arm, it recommends to use some angle iron, and this one is a piece that I cut. Let me get it situated. All right, so this is a piece of angle iron that I cut to fit in between there, and you can see there's Jake. You can hear him breathing in the background. You can see that it's a pretty tight fit. Probably going to scratch up my control arms, but hey, that's why I painted them instead of powder coating them, because I can easily touch that up. But that will give it the support it needs so that it doesn't collapse, and change those dimensions right there. All right, so I'm going to start with these upper control arms, and I'm not going to film this, but I'm going to go ahead and grease these things up, and I'm going to start the process of getting them pressed in. All right, so I got the grease applied to these things, inside and out. Now I'm going to get it all set up, get it in the press, and get this first one pressed in. All right, so that's bushing number 1, and I didn't film it, so I tried to. The camera, I thought it was on, it was off, and took a tremendous amount of pressure to move that thing in. And I still got a little bit of a lip there. I'm going to actually try to get that in, and then I'm going to put the threaded rod through and do the other side. And I will try to get that on camera. Things should start going in. All right, so here is one upper control arm, and this is I believe the passenger side upper control arm complete. And this one looks really good. Happy with that one. This one doesn't sit flush against the control arm because of these little nubs in here on the sleeve that you press in, and they hit where that sticks out right there on the control arm. And that just doesn't look right to me. So I called Energy Suspension tech support today, and I gave the guy the kit number and said, hey, is it supposed to look like that? And he said, absolutely, because this is free floating, is the way he described it, his words, and it shouldn't be pressed all the way up against the control arm, and that allows it to be free floating. I don't know that I understand that fully, but okay. And then I talked to him about the directions, and I said, look, I get it. Once you start putting the thing together, they can only go, all these can only go in one place. But he said, hey, I've got a kind of a sketch that I can share with you, or an architect sketch. And I'm like, sure. So he emailed it to me, and let me show you guys this. Now, I'm going to flash this up on let me go ahead and flash up a still shot of this. And if you want to reference this, you can pause it and look at it. But I'll go ahead and throw that up now. All right, so this is what I think they should include in their instructions, because, hey, there's a control arm. There's the rear upper and the front upper. And there's the part number 3012, which is stamped on the bushing itself. 1.38 outside diameter, 1.30 outside diameter, so those are really close, and 3005, and it does the same thing for the lower control arms, and that's it's really helpful. If you've never done this before, this diagram is worth $1 million, so it really helped me to get this. Glad I called them, and glad I could pass this information along, and hopefully you guys find it useful. All right, so I'm going to get the other control arm, and I don't think I'm going to film the other upper, and then I'll film part of the lower, and then we'll go from there. But I'm going to grab that other upper control arm and get these things pressed in. All right, so the lower control arms are done, and I can tell you, very difficult to do. You can see that one's kind of bent, and I'll have to straighten that out somehow. But man, it's really hard to press these things with the amount of force it takes to get these sleeves in there and keep everything straight. And I had a brace from here to here and a brace inside from here to here, and it just seemed to kind of push this down a little bit, and then this one is also bent a little bit. So nothing easy about these at all. And I can tell you, knowing what I know now, I probably would have pressed just the sleeves in before I painted these things, and then painted everything. and done any, because these things are all scratched up, even though, yeah, I can touch them up. There's a lot of touch up to do. So very difficult to do, even with a press. And let me show you these upper control arms. The upper control arms were a pain too, but didn't seem to be as bad as the lowers. So they're in, and I also got this bump stop in, and I can tell you that this thing was a pain to pull through. And I'll tell you how I did it, is I struggled and struggled with it. And when I was on the phone with the energy suspension tech guy, I said, hey, how do you get these bump stops in? And he kind of laughed at me and said, no one's really ever asked that. I said, yeah, I wanted to call him, a smart you-know-what. But I said, yeah, they don't seem to want to go through. And he said, put them in the freezer and then pull them through. So I put them in the freezer last night and pulled on them harder than I've... I had 1 foot here, 1 foot here, pair of pliers on each side of this thing, and I pulled is just about as hard as I could, and it popped through, and it didn't damage it at all. So if you got those bump stops, I know these are polyurethane, but the rubber ones are a pain as well. And here's the other side. All this looks pretty good. So I'm real happy with the upper control arms. Definitely not as happy with these. So we got a little bit of straightening up to do. Particularly on this one. I actually think that one's not that bad. That one's not that bad, and that one. So those outside ones, I gotta try to straighten those out a little bit. So I'll figure that out and go from there. All right, so like I said in the beginning of the video, I was optimistic that I would get all those things done, and as you can see, this video is getting a little bit long. So I'm gonna cut it here, and it's just gonna be control arm bushings. And I can tell you, I watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to put these things in, and nobody ever seems to have problems with them. But I can tell you, they're not easy to do, and it might be worth I did them myself. I'm not going to pay a shop to do them, but and I have a press, not a very fancy one, but I have a press, and even with that and the stops that I made and the bars to brace everything, I still got some bendage in the control arms. So I'm going to see if I can repair those lower control arms. I'm sure I can, but I looked at new ones. I looked at the tubular ones to save weight or whatever, and they start around $750 for a set of 4, and that was the most reasonably priced set that I could find. I know you can get factory ones. I may be buying a couple of lowers, I don't know, but I'm going to see if I can salvage these. I don't think they're that bad. But man, what a pain that was, and it's not as easy as the videos make it look. And this was hopefully and I didn't even show you all the pressing that we did. My wife and I, actually, she's the one that was down here helping me. You saw her a little bit in the video. The one time I showed you us pressing in the sleeve there, that was my wife helping out, and she's helped me out for the last 2 evenings trying to get these things in. So blame it on her, right? So it's her fault that they bent. I'm kidding. But she can't get mad at me now if I spend money and buy new ones. So hopefully that'll all work out. But all kidding aside, I really don't think I'll have to buy new ones. I think I'm good. I just got to do a little work on these and go from there. All right, so that's going to do it for this video. Appreciate you guys tuning in, watching. Hopefully you're learning from my mistakes and my trials and errors that I make with these things. I did the same thing on my Jeep. I'm doing the same thing on my car. So none of this stuff seems to go real smooth for me. And pressing in those control arm bushings was, like I said, it was a real pain. All right, so thanks for checking out the video. Appreciate your support. And as always, thanks for watching.